Well, let's talk some more now about that historic deal agreed at Glasgow to end worldwide deforestation, one of the major causes of greenhouse gas emissions, of course. Our science correspondent, Jeremy Wilks, joins me now in set to go over the details. Oh, Jeremy, as I just mentioned, the devil's always in the details. So how is this deal being sold? Yeah, I mean, it's being promoted quite widely by the UK government using some of their spin machine, and they're basically saying this is the first major deal of COP26. 100 countries signed up to it. Some important ones on the list too. Brazil is on the list. We have Nigeria, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ecuador, Guatemala. The EU is there, of course. Honduras, Indonesia and Japan all signed up to this. And it does show, I suppose, that there's a kind of momentum on an international level to try and do something about deforestation. It is the biggest deal of its kind that's ever been agreed. And there's 10 billion in public financing, 6 billion in private financing. What's being welcomed is that there's a focus now on the expertise of indigenous communities to look after land and all of their knowledge that they can bring to the table. And that's not something that was there before necessarily. So Boris Johnson's saying this is the moment when we turn from being the kind of conquerors of nature to being the custodians of nature. Environmental campaigners are basically saying there's not enough in terms of a strong or binding mechanism on a legal level behind this in order to really give it teeth and to make sure that it really works and prevents deforestation. And I'd say they point to something called the New York Declaration on Forests from 2014, where governments set up and said that they were going to commit to cutting deforestation by 50% by 2020, and that target wasn't achieved. And they say, well, this is just another example of the same kind of thing. But it seems to tick so many boxes there. You mentioned that this public-private financing as well as the contribution from indigenous leaders. But is there enough there to silence some of the critics? We had Greta Thunberg, decrying what was going on inside those Glasgow conference rooms. I think you've got to look at the numbers on this. So we're talking about 16 billion there. That's a lot of money to you and me. But if you listen to Global Witness, who are a campaign group who hold companies and governments to account on deforestation, environmental destruction, they say that since the Paris Agreement was signed, banks and investors have put 135 billion euros into the kinds of companies, agri-businesses that commit this deforestation. So you've got 16 billion euros on one side to protect the forests, 135 on the other side, to the kinds of companies that take part in this destruction. So, I think that we need to have a conversation about the value that we put on nature, and actually the kinds of conversations that will come from this deal will probably encourage that to happen, to say, let's value the services that we get from these ecosystems and put a real price onto it. The campaigners will keep pushing, and they say these kinds of deals just have to have teeth. They have to have nationally binding legislation in order for them to be effective, and that's not the case with this deal at the moment. Nonetheless, though, some would say a significant step forward on day one, or on day two as we are. Jeremy Wilks, thanks for joining me on that.